Hello my friends and welcome to another From Good to Great. I have changed my opinion on commander traits over the course of playing the game since the very beginning. If you've seen my original commander's traits video, I sort of taught you guys a method there to determine the core slot value of picks. And that was, early on in the days of Panzer Corps 2. It worked very well for finding out to a reasonable extent what is a good pick and what is a bad pick. But I have realized with experience and time that I was wrong about a certain series of traits. But I sort of wasn't wrong. Individually they're very weak, but together they are unbelievably uber. And so I have called them the Power 4. The Power 4 are Master of Blitzkrieg, Flexible Command, Perimeter Control, and Deadly Grasp. And you can pay for these very easily by taking Slow Modernization, because Slow Modernization is actually pretty much free points, because the upgrades come very slowly throughout the course of the whole campaign. And things like artillery, the 15cm gun and the 88 anti-air, they don't change throughout the whole campaign. You can just use those throughout without ever upgrading them, and it's totally fine. Infantry has like one upgrade to a 43 variant, for example. So the only thing you ever really need to upgrade is your tanks, because those change from time to time. But anyway, it's off topic a little bit. The Power 4 are the most powerful thing in the game, in my opinion, when you have all four of them. And if you look out there at other generalissimus and top players, they take these four because they're just so powerful, so uber, and they make the game so easy once you understand them. Once it clicks in your mind as to how powerful these are, then it makes sense to just take them and just win very easily. But I'm going to show you why. And it's not just that they're powerful for making money, there is that too. But they're powerful just straight up in combat. So, allow me to show you.
Guten Morgen, Herr General.
Okay, so here we have Polish cavalry. And what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to... let's just dismiss a few units, okay. I'm just going to buy some cavalry of my own, which is very similar statistically to the Polish cavalry. In fact, I think it's probably identical, which is what I'm going for. Okay, so I'll just pick up my recon car and move it for a later bit of the demonstration. Okay. So, we've selected the Power 4. So what makes them so uber? Well, the simple answer is that they let you win fights without fighting. Now, I would say that cavalry is actually the worst demonstration of how powerful this is, in that this is a unit that is actually most able to defend itself, and it still loses horribly. So I'll show you what I mean. So with the Power 4 enabled, what you can do very easily is you can split your unit and surround your victim. And there's nothing they can do about it. Because as long as you enable the surround on your turn, which is really easy with these movement skills, especially with tanks, because of Master of Blitzkrieg, you just enable the surround. There's nothing the AI can do about it. And I'm not using any extra units here. I'm just going to leave all these units here. I'm just using the cavalry. So I'm just showing you a one-on-one situation where this move is at its least powerful. So I'll just end my turn. Okay. So I took 2 losses. 2 losses. Now, at this point, this cavalry is already 4, 5, 6, 7. It's already lost 55% of its... No, sorry, 45% of its fighting strength. Now, if this were a tank, if these were tanks fighting, not only would the tanks have, my tanks would have taken less because tanks are quite hard to kill, especially early on in the war, when they're shooting at each other, of course. Not only would I have taken less damage, but, with force suppression, whatever's left of the tank unit, it would be more than 50% suppressed right now. But, so already at this point, I've taken 2 losses, and this cavalry is now below half fighting strength. Now the AI is not even fighting back because they're done. They're literally totally done. Now the suppression is at 8, they've got 12 strength left. And obviously next turn they would be completely disabled. But already the AI has given up. So they've done 2 damage to me and then they've just been like, nope, I give up. And if it were a tank battle, even though my tank is identical to theirs, and it's just my tank versus their tank, if I'd have done the same thing with a tank, the tank would have been hit even harder, even faster, because the only defense against this is the size of your unit. So a 15 strength unit, of course, resists being suppressed by 4 better than a unit that's only 10 strength. 4 suppression on a unit that's only 10 strength is 40% of its fighting strength. So I've won this already. This is it. I've taken 2 casualties, and this cavalry has been totally and utterly disabled. And now I'm totally at my leisure to surround this unit and force a surrender out of it. Boom. And I made a huge sum of money. Just like that. And that sum of money is more than... Well, not on this difficulty, just for demonstration I've put it on Corporal. Not that that makes any difference to the actual combat, it just makes difference to the prestige. But on Generalissimus, the whole map, prestige counter, I think is worth 450. So you've made almost what the map is worth in a single blast. But the economic side of it is totally absurd, and that's fine. I've discussed that before, and it becomes obvious very quickly. It's the combat side of it that's so incredibly crazy. That cavalry could do nothing. I didn't even have to fight it. All I had to do was surround it with 1 unit. I didn't even need more than 1 unit. You can surround 1 for 1 by using the split technique with perimeter control, and put these units in the encirclement immediately, and within a single turn they're totally, utterly done. The funny part is, this is just not even the total strength of it. This is just the very, very basics of how powerful it is. So if I start this scenario again, okay, let's put the power 4 back on. So that's flexible command, deadly grasp. I like to call it deadly grip because I think grasp is actually the wrong word here. Grip is actually the correct word, and I'm correcting it in my head, correcting the English in my head. Master Blitzkrieg and perimeter control. This is my power 4.
Guten Morgen, Herr General.
Now the funny part is that this technique synergizes disgustingly well with one of the cheapest and least appreciated units in the game, the level bomber, or strat bomber in this game, or I actually can't remember what they call it in this. Strategic bomber, yeah. That's my age showing. In Panzer General, the very, very original one 20 years ago, they were called level bombers, and I've never shaken that designation out of my head. The most basic level bomber only costs 1 core slot. It's cheap as chips. And I mean, honestly, 130 prestige, it's cheap as chips prestige-wise as well. So, what you can do, which is very simple, yeah, let's just leave it with the default set, is with your power 4, I won't use cavalry this time because it's just I've already shown you how absurd it is, even with cavalry. And that's the worst example. So here I've set up the tanks to surround this cavalry. Your cheapest chips level bomber, you actually start with one of these. 1 core slot, 130 prestige. You can just level bomb these poor fools. Okay, so that's 3 suppression on them. So now I'm just going to end my turn. That's it, they're dead. They didn't even fight back at all. The thing is, even if the AI moved, because it's in your zone of control, it can only move 1 space. So if it moved here, or here, or here, you just move your containment to match it. There's nothing the AI can do to get away from it. And the only thing I needed to do to enhance how ridiculously powerful this is add 1 level bomber that cost me 1 core slot. And of course you could use artillery as well, but you know, the level bombers are super mega cheap, so there's no reason why you couldn't have 2 or 3 or 4 level bombers just sat in an airfield somewhere for this express purpose. They've got great range as well, and you know, you can find uses for them in busting entrenchment or even scouting. You know, if your level bombers haven't got anything to do, you can just fly them across the map to explore. And thanks to their huge fuel capacity or range, they can reveal quite a lot of the map. In fact, I'll show you. Look, you can just reveal all this section of the map with a level bomber pretty easily. And since they're so cheap, it's not the biggest deal if they get shot at. But yeah, in 1 single turn, this cavalry is at 7 suppression and has decided that it can't win. I doubt it would have attacked even if I was surrounding it with cavalry, because it's so suppressed already. So of course on the next turn you can follow up with your level bomber again. And you'll note... Okay, I actually did a little bit of damage there because I've got 50% RNG on. But if you've, you know... Generally speaking, you won't do any casualties to the unit. So not only are you suppressing it, but you're not actually doing any real damage to it, which means that when you decide to capture it, which I presume is what you're going to do, there's going to be a lot more of it to steal. And it's the fact that your units are split down into smaller sizes that means that more of the enemy is actually going to survive. Which means that you are going to walk away with more money when you get your capture in. I actually wonder if this is suppressed enough to capture it on this turn in particular. But I mean, this is only the 2nd turn, and the unit was basically incapacitated on the 1st. I think he's going to surrender. No, he didn't surrender. Okay, so I've made a dog's dinner of that. That could have been done more efficiently, or I could have taken 1 more turn to do it, or I could have used the artillery. There's tons of things I could have done. Some people deliberately weaken their units a little bit so that they can poke as well and get as much of the unit as possible captured. Ah, this is what I get for having 50% RNG on. Okay, so not the best capture ever, but that's my own fault for not taking the RNG off for demonstration purposes and not completely suppressing it. But the point was, within 1 turn, without any fighting whatsoever, that unit was disabled. That was it. I just, with 1 piece of my own, I took 1 of their pieces off the battlefield and basically made it unable to do anything at all. Then it was just totally at my leisure as to what I wanted to do with it. I could have waited several turns until it was fully suppressed and then fully captured it, or I could just kill it, or whatever I want. It's totally done. And the funny part is, I've seen people using the Power 4, you know, with the fact that it lets you you know, so easily move across the map and just totally ignore these rivers and all the rest of it. You know, you just totally ignore the terrain and immediately put things into surrounds. Like, there's an anti-tank gun here, and you know, from a great distance I can just fly in, immediately encircling this unit, and it will be the same situation if I level bomb it. Okay, so now it's got 1 suppression and 9 health, and by the start of their turn it will take 4 suppression from Deadly Grasp. It will be down to 30% combat power by the start of the next turn, and the turn after that it will be just totally disabled, if it even attacks on the next turn. So, yeah, and it gets more silly from there. I mean, on some of the bigger maps, what you can do is you can just make a conga line of units around the edge of the map. Like, split your units into 2 aggressive fronts and just push them up the sides to make a containment line, and then just seal all the enemy in. Obviously you have to watch out for supply hexes, but the moment that you put the seal on the enemy, they're done. But I just wanted to show you guys in this video that this series of units just wins straight up. Just actually, you can just run in to the enemy one-on-one, split your unit one-on-one, and totally disable that enemy unit one-on-one, and win that fight straight up without any additional units having to be used or any special tactics or whatever. You can just win all your one-on-one engagements without even fighting. You have to make them, you can make them attack you every time. So you always get the defender's advantage if, for example, it's infantry and you're parked in a clear tile and they're parked in a close tile. You don't want to fight the infantry in the close tile because they'll destroy you. But with this technique, you don't have to fight them. You can just pin them in, and whether they attack or not, within a turn or two, they're going to be completely disabled and effectively dead and totally at your mercy. If your 2 tanks are in clear tiles, the infantry will not attack because it will take horrible damage. So effectively, you can remove that piece from the board without even fighting it. You can just literally be like, okay, split my 1 tank to surround their 1 infantry, and I win. And the AI can't do anything about it. It's so funny. So that's the power 4. That is the technique, which I went over this in my capturing and encirclement video, but I just wanted to explain what these traits are and why they're so powerful and why they make the game so easy. Once it clicks in your head that I can just split my 1 unit and immediately pin the enemy, then if they've got 5 tanks and you've got 5 tanks, you just split your 5 tanks around their 5 tanks, and then on the start of their turn, they're usually 60% fighting strength if you don't do anything else to them. And if you decide to level bomb them a little bit, you can certainly bring them down to 40%. And, you know, 40% strength units are not going to be able to break out of an encirclement, even if your units are half strength because of splitting. You are actually still more powerful than them at that point. But of course the AI knows that it would barely do any damage and would take horrible losses, so it doesn't attack, and then the next turn it's completely disabled and they're literally game over. But even against human players, I wonder if this technique would not be incredibly powerful because of the way that encirclement penalties trigger on the start of your turn, meaning that there's nothing you can do about it. If all they have to do is put the encirclement on you, there's nothing that you personally can do about it on your turn to prevent the harm that's coming, because the harm comes at the start of your turn. Now that said, in multiplayer you can't have Deadly Grasp and you can't have the Power 4. You don't get traits in multiplayer. But encirclement itself may, and splitting obviously is just a core game feature. Encirclement and splitting may work in multiplayer, but I think, you know, because you can't get the power 4, it would certainly be a hell of a lot less powerful. But in the game, with the power 4, it is crazy talk. So, that's it for now. I wanted to show this off because it's quite clearly the most overpowered strategy in the game, even more so than Heroes, even more so than Liberator and trophies and all that kind of thing, because the amount of money that you can generate from stealing things is off the walls, because capturing is not affected by difficulty. So when you capture units, you get them at the price as if you were playing the game on Corporal, which is the no penalties difficulty, the second easiest difficulty. So with just a couple of captures, you can make the kind of money that you would expect to see from the whole mission. And then later on in the campaign, if you want to stop farming the enemy all day long, you can. You can just brute force your way through the game with all the money you made. You can do whatever you want, really. So that is it for now. I hope you guys found this interesting, and I will see you guys next time.